So we're live with Holly. Hi, Holly. How are you?
Hi, good.
Thank
How are
you
you?
for joining me. So, for those who don't know who you are, tell us about you. We'll start off. Just tell us about you.
So I'm a senior lecturer in political philosophy at the University of Melbourne, and I've been working on gender critical feminism, radical feminism for about the last 2 years or so. And yeah, I guess we're going to talk about some of that fight.
Yeah. And so, so what were you doing before all of this happened? Was it just general philosophy, or have it always been political philosophy?
Yeah, it's always been moral and political philosophy, but I basically never really did any feminism, to be honest. I mean, I dabbled. I remember distinctively going to a reading group once where I sort of started to get interested, and then I got totally yelled at by someone for having mascara on at the time, and then I kind of backed out and didn't do any feminism again for I don't know, another 2 or 3 years maybe.
As those things go. Yep.
Yeah. So it was a really yes, I did climate ethics, stuff about collective agency and citizen responsibility for states' actions.
Nice.
Lots of moral and political topics and lots of dabbling. But yeah, then I just got obsessively interested in feminism when all this stuff in the UK kicked off, and that's what I've been doing since then.
So what was your PhD
in? Something pretty boring on political philosophy methodology.
Yeah. That's not boring. That's awesome. But that's me. I'm weird. We're weird like that. That's probably the most fascinating thing in the world. Yeah. I'd just like to point out that Holly's T-shirt is amazing, just so you know.
I think
thought that it was topical.
If I remember correctly, I think it's the Wild Women Workshop T-shirt, which is part of the Get the Owl Out group.
Yeah,
and,
it's fabulous.
If I can't wear it today, then when the hell can I wear it?
Exactly. Yeah, you're out and proud.
In my own home.
In your own home. Yeah, like a badass. I'd never wear anything like that to the shops.
I would not keep the cardigan closed.
I'm a hero in my lounge room. I've got so many T-shirts, and I like mugs because they're the things that I can rebel in private, right? Yeah, exactly. But I'm not really that brave. I've
got a whole maybe a pile of these T-shirts. I've got the I Love Julie Bindel T-shirt, and I've got all the Posy Parker T-shirts, and a bunch of the other Wild Woman Workshop T-shirts. And I was thinking I've got a new course coming up in feminism, and I was thinking about wearing one in each lecture, but then I realized it actually just completely undermines my sense of being impartial, right?
That's right.
If I'm teaching prostitution and I've got to abolish prostitution, I won't do that.
Yeah. I think that's the role. The challenge of an academic is that you need to sort of lead people to reason.
Yeah,
and make up their own mind.
Exactly, and they can disagree. So I guess the T-shirt. Even if I would teach impartially, the T-shirt kind of.
It is funny though. I love it. It's great. So you were thrust into this, right? So for those who don't know, recently Victoria, the state of Victoria, not Canada, state of Victoria in Australia, basically passed self-ID, right? For the global audience, self-ID is the word that we use for, no need, it's stat dec, basically.
Yeah.
Right? So do you want to talk about how you kind of got thrown into all of this stuff? Start there, maybe.
Yeah, for me it was a bit earlier than that. So because I'm in philosophy.
Yeah.
And so for me, with the UK Gender Recognition Act stuff, because that caused a big fuss inside philosophy. So Kathleen, all this will be familiar to people inside the debate, but if there's anyone new, I guess Kathleen Stock wrote her essay in 2018, and then academic philosophy blew up. She was just kind of saying, where the fuck are the feminist philosophers on this issue? We're in the UK, there's tons of them. There's a really active organization, the Society for Women in Philosophy, that had been advocating for women's interests, given how underrepresented we are in philosophy. I think it's about 30%. Where the fuck are all of those women now that we're talking about moving to self-ID? And the answer became pretty obvious, which is that most of those women were on board with self-ID and buying into all the like trans activist, liberal feminist doctrine. So of course they weren't pushing back. And then there was just this, I guess it caused a turf war, not to be a dickhead, but
yeah,
that they, I suppose, thought like, who are these assholes that aren't even feminist philosophers coming in, having opinions about feminism? Like, I suppose that was the kind of reaction, because it got really hostile really quickly. So basically, long story short, like, I just thought how Kathleen was treated and responded to was completely unacceptable. And that made me angry. And then my anger made me
curious. Yeah. I think that's what happened, I think, for a lot of people, was that we started to, there are those that are on the side of just fairness.
Yep.
And even if you disagree with somebody, you might disagree with them. I don't know if you're like me. But the second I see that something is unfair, I'll fight for the devil's. I'll fight for the devil's right to speak. Right, if it's fair, if it's unfair, and it's like it becomes no longer about that other thing. It becomes about fairness, right?
Or just the perception of like, I don't know what the what's the word, like the optics of it or something. Like there's this like lesbian feminist having an opinion about something that affects her, and then here are all these like bearded woke asshole men piling on about what a woman is or what a lesbian, like it's the same optics as like Daniel Radcliffe lecturing J.K. Rowling, right? It's like, who the fuck do you think you are? So that's what you say, that's the unfairness that gets you like, okay, now I'm angry.
I think it's at the nexus of everything that is the lived experience of being a woman. I think it's actually just a tipping point where I think a lot of us have just gone, this represents every battle I've ever had, ever. Which is some dude taking the credit, defining who I am, telling me I'm dumb, telling me I don't know stuff. Like, you know, like this Body Shop thing. Did you know about what the Body Shop did with J.K. Rowling?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, this sassy tweet where they're like, here's a care package and a book. You might want to read this book. And I just got so incensed by this, because that notion that just because a woman speaks that she's stupid, like that's the narrative, you know, that constant feeling like you're stupid rather than valid. And it's just, that's the thing that it's just like, this is a lifetime of being patronized.
There was actually so much of that in the beginning of this debate. And actually, interestingly, it wasn't coming from men. So that's one of the things that we talk more about. I found it so fascinating. There was a lot of this like extremely patronizing, condescending, like educate yourself stuff, but coming from other feminist philosophers. So we'd sort of say things about like the value of women-only spaces, and this wasn't really theory driven at the time. It was just kind of instinctive, like this stuff is important. And then they'd be like, oh, you just obviously haven't read the literature. And then there'd be all this Twitter noise about the literature. No one could ever point to what it was.
The series of pamphlets.
Where is it in this magical past somehow that it's there, but you can't point to it. You can't give us a date or a page number or an author. Oh, but it's all been settled. So that sort of condescending idea that like you just need to, you must be stupid if you think this, you need to educate yourself and then you'll be on my side. It's like, okay, well, we went away, we educated ourselves and we're back. and we also understand all of the history of all of feminism ever and see this for what it is. Exactly. It's the pattern. I know. It's if anyone hasn't done the reading, I think it's them.
I quote this often. Billy Connolly said, never trust anybody who's only read one book.
That's true.
He said it for religion, but I think that it applies here too, right?
Yeah. No, it's true. They've all read Whipping. They've read Serrano. They've read the trans women. So they've read Julia Serrano. They've read Susan Stryker, if we're lucky, and they've read a little bit of Butler, or they've heard what the soundbite is of Butler, and then they go from there.
Or they misquote. One of the funniest, I know you're off Twitter and we'll get to that, but one of the funniest epic threads at the moment is a man telling women what Simone de Beauvoir meant. by a woman is not born but made, right?
Oh, I can't even hear
It
that.
is hilarious. No, but it is actually legitimately hilarious because he's just doubling down and tripling down, and it's clear he hasn't read, like he doesn't understand the context of it, right? It's just really funny. But
Where does that confidence come from? Like, I've seen that so many times in this debate, that exact just people.
you just don't understand it.
Yeah, they don't know what it means. They don't know what the context was where she said it, and then they're completely confident about what it shows. It's so embarrassing.
I know, but it is funny. It's the thing that annoys me the most about this whole turf war debate, right, is that despite it being an incredibly serious issue, right, it's funny. It is actually entertaining and funny, and it brings out the most ridiculous. Like some of the stuff that I've seen is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's funny, right? So
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I guess I don't find it that funny that often.
no,
but I can think of things that have been.
it's not ha funny. It's more like fucked up funny.
Yeah, I mean, did you see? There was this thing last night that I actually was. I don't know if it's funny or just ingenious. Actually, there was this trans activist. Typical anime emoji, what's it called? Avatar on Twitter. But the reasoning was, did you see this about how when there was a particular spell in Harry Potter in one of the books, Hermione turned into Harry.
Their fan fiction is awesome.
No, but it wasn't. It was from the Harry Potter books. It was a real incident in the book.
Yeah.
Hermione did a spell where she turned herself into Harry temporarily, and then the pronoun they used to refer to Hermione in Harry's body was she.
Yeah.
So there was this whole reasoning in this about how the pronoun refers to the identity regardless of the body, because Hermione was still she even when she had Harry's body. And in a way, it's like, that's kind of ingenious.
Yeah.
Mad / hilarious.
I do. It's like, when you watch the Flat Earth documentary and you're actually legitimately impressed because they can argue it and they do the research, but I think there was one of the scientists they spoke to, they said they're actually scientifically minded. They're smart people, but they're just so wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really interesting, I think.
And that's the thing. Yeah, it's the same sort of stuff. It is entertaining, and I do find it funny. But I think you have to find it funny. I think it's a coping strategy. Yeah. I've never laughed harder at some of the way that the lesbians come back on this stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
The INPL jokes and all that sort of stuff. You have to laugh. It's just one of those things.
No, that was really good.
There
are moments of lightness.
Yeah. But so when you first dove into this, did you feel like did you know that you were standing on a landmine that would be extended this battle? Did you expect this?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's so hard it's kind of hard to remember. I think I knew that Kathleen was getting like a lot of vitriol, and I knew that it felt unfair that she should get it alone. That was really my motivation. But like, if a few of us came in too, then they would be forced to divide their vitriol among a greater number of people, and that would sort of tamper it down. I don't think I could have ever foreseen that it would be like 2 years later, and then all the things that would happen, like the upsetting incidents, or the deplatformings, or the bannings, or I don't think I could have seen any of that, and I don't think I could have foreseen, like how that affects you, I guess. Particularly,
how has it affected you?
I mean, one thing that I really didn't see coming, and I think it was maybe Helen Joyce, who had a really nice commentary about this on Twitter last year, how you feel like you have the scarlet letter on your head. Like, I felt so self-conscious in public space online, and I knew that they knew my face because you can Google me very easily, and it's clear where my office is, and like all that stuff is just like really public. So I felt like when I went into any cafe in Melbourne, maybe they know who I am and fucking hate me. And that's such a weird feeling, like in how you interact with people and in public space. Just like, probably they don't know. Probably this is just a corner of the universe that like most people don't even know about and wouldn't give a shit about even if they did know. But some people really care, and if they know and they clock you, they're going to be really angry. That took a long time for me to get used to, like not just feeling hyper conscious.
Did you grow up? Because obviously you grew up lesbian, right? We can say this. Have you ever felt this way before? Is it something that
I actually didn't grow up lesbian.
Okay, that was probably a sloppy way to say it.
No. I mean, I would just say I came out quite late.
Okay.
So I didn't have these kinds of experiences when I was young. So I would say for me, that kind of experience of being like really conscious about being, it's different because this is about being kind of politically hated by a segment of people. It's not about being like discriminated against per se. I think there's much more injustice in discrimination, right?
Yeah.
This is like, it's difficult because, I mean, this has been part of what's so hard about this whole debate. Like, can you discriminate against people on the basis of their political views? And a lot of people think, yes, because you can have shitty political views and then you deserve everything you get. So
that was at the front of Maya's case, wasn't it, really?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's developing. God, yeah, that self-consciousness is I think the personal toll that it's taken on friendships is a surprise. Have you lost friends over this, and colleagues? Like, how did the university, did they support you, or what's your?
Yeah, I have. There's one thing that's not even a friend or colleague, but is so weird. You would think that self-consciousness in public space thing is mostly paranoia, but it's actually like I've been like, I'm not welcome at a local cafe anymore. Like, so it has actually happened. I'm in a pretty like woke neighborhood, but it has happened that like.
Were you wearing the t-shirt?
I go out in disguise, but yeah, it has happened that I've like fallen out with a barista over this topic, and then when I've gone back into the cafe, he's been an asshole. Like,
it's a license for him to be the gloves, the mask slips, right?
Exactly. And it's like, and that stuff happens when you've been going somewhere for a year and having friendly banter. But as soon as it's like, turns out, oh, you don't think all the things you're supposed to think when you're a left-wing person. And literally the attitude was like, I mean, I wasn't kicked out, but it was like the most frosty possible interactions just until I left of my own accord.
Was the coffee good?
Yeah.
Was there a good alternative?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's Melbourne. It doesn't matter, but it's just interesting that it's like, it's not
so
entirely
weird.
Paranoid.
It feels like you've got cooties.
Yeah.
It really does, doesn't it? But, goodness.
On the question about friends, I think it's actually been much more online. So in that sense, I don't think I've lost anyone that mattered.
Yeah.
In the sense of like actual long-standing close people. But I've certainly had like Facebook friends and colleagues who I've had friendly coffees with, and people that I would have thought that I have met a few times or have visited universities I've been at and we've spent time together that I've really liked and respected, who have then like, they just unfriend you, or they refuse to speak to you again, or they won't come to the same thing that you're at. That sort of stuff has happened, but it's like, that doesn't matter that much, right?
But that also happens, I think, because I've been through divorce, so it also happens with other events like that where you become marked. I think it's just a lot of people can't deal with their own feelings and discomfort and don't know what to say to you, or that they're not comfortable in themselves. So they just make it's easier to just like walk away.
Yeah, I agree.
Things like that are good for redeveloping yourself and and tightening your circles anyway, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So because I think the time this got real, I think, not real, it's always been real, right? But was around JY when Megan Murphy got banned off Twitter, and there was a whole bunch of collateral damage around this one person because this person appeared who highlighted everything that people were pointing out around self-ID. For those who don't understand, the issue has never been about trans rights. The issue has always been about self-ID and lowering those barriers, right? And though the people who have been pushing for this stuff are the very people we're trying to keep out. I think that really seems to be that, the proof is in how hard they push, really. And that's, I don't want to misspeak, but that's sort of the short summary of that. But Jessica and Eve arrived in all their glory and showed us the limitations and problems. And I honestly thought that would be the thing that made people go, oh. But then we saw a doubling down.
I know.
And a tripling down. And a quadrupling down. Right? And it's been passed in Victoria.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah.
About your role there?
Well, I mean, I guess it took us by surprise. I think if I hadn't been living in Australia when the first attempt happened, so from my point of view, it had been happening in the UK. There were proposals in various countries, and we were all like, there's a RadFem group, so we were all like on edge waiting for it to come. And then it just felt like it came. But actually, when I learned more about it, it was like, there was a failed attempt some years ago, and then there was something.
Keep trying,
And like, I think 2014 or 2013, I can't remember exactly, it was like, suspiciously, the definitions of man and women got taken out of the Sex Discrimination Act. And then, so this stuff has been like coming for a long time, and they've been lining their ducks in the row for a long time. But from my point of view, it was just, I think we had about 2 months notice that there was already a bill. And then I think maybe 15 or so of us kind of got together. There was already a RadFem group in the early stages of organizing, but in that way that feminist groups, I think particularly in the 60s, honestly, where it's like, we'll just really slowly figure out our manifesto and our values and what we want to do. It's just and we won't have any hierarchy. And, so it was like, we had a couple of those extremely snail-paced meetings, and who knows how long that would have taken. And then the self-ID thing hit. So we made and we got really organized around that. And that was actually, we accomplished an amazing amount in that tiny period. I think there was huge numbers of meetings with MPs and letters going out, and we put on an event. And
you got published in the papers, which surprised me, because there was a chill around this at the time.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I've found the sort of two editors of the Australian and the Age to be really committed to, I think, just having the democratic debate and not really giving into activists. And that's been amazing, to have both the kind of leftish, rightish, century leftish, rightish papers.
These weird alliances,
that they're both willing to have the conversation about this. So that was great. Yeah. So I feel we did quite a bit, but it wasn't enough, and we didn't have enough time, and we didn't have enough support, and just there was a ridiculous fast. I sat in on the various readings. I forget all the terminology, but
the readings,
and these MPs telling these stupid personal, the extent to which it was just emotional stuff, oh, my 14-year-old child, and then crying. And then everyone's, so thank you for sharing your...
Still not an argument for,
not an argument. And then there's amazing Louise Staley, and she's got this fucking great list of arguments. It's just GC to the bone. And she's just telling all these reasons why we shouldn't have self-ID. And the crying people win. And that, for me, that was such a revelation about, I mean, I know that sounds stupid. I'm a political philosopher. I didn't know how politics works, but it's I think I had a naive utopian view that that reasons
and merit and that people, and because my degree is in public policy, right? So I've always gone, there's a process, and it's a fair process, and we clearly identify. You know what I mean? Policy cycle, and you consult, and it's fair, and this is democracy.
They didn't consult.
No, they didn't consult. And so I had this romantic, foolish idea that if you walk in with a degree in something that people think you understand it. And I've been joking about this, or not joking, I'm actually getting more and more mad about this actually, which is dudes with no qualifications, other than the fact they've got a dick, are now suddenly dominating this conversation online as well.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there going, hello. And it's like, and I've said this, like, oh, well, a dude with a barista with a beard versus your PhD, it's no, as a woman, you start to learn. That's the thing that hurts. And that's why I don't find this funny. And I think, you know, that thing where I said you have to laugh because it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Where I think we are reminded that we need 10 more degrees than a man to be heard.
I know.
Or a PhD against a screaming child to be listened to. You know what I mean? That it hurts, like, to know that.
I tried this with so I don't know if I can't remember if I told you this, but I got banned from Hinge recently.
That was the thing that actually made me message you and go, oh my God, like this is just so stupid.
I know. So we should talk about that. But I was just going to say,
I didn't want to go personal, but
I tried to make this move of the like PhD against the moderator for Hinge. So I emailed them, and then I was like, you know, why did I get banned? And they had this back and forth. And then I was like, just letting you know, like, I'm actually like a senior lecturer at this place, and I've been writing a book for the last 2 years, like, on this topic, and it's really controversial, and I understand that things are heated in America, but things are a bit different here in Melbourne. Like, I just tried to, like, a little bit pull rank.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a fucking muppet. Like, I know a little bit what I'm talking about, so that he might shut up. No, of course that didn't work.
You just don't understand Simone de Beauvoir and what he meant, Holly. You just don't get it. The junior marketers at the Body Shop are much more enlightened than you. Do you not understand this?
I know. I just need to read another book.
And I feel bad because one of the things I think, and that's another thing you and I probably have in common, is like one thing I've always fought against, like with is smugness.
Oh yeah.
You know, like it's like, no, we're still people. People might not have the right words for things. They might not argue correct, you know, like in philosophy particularly, you know, we work within the frameworks, and people might have sloppy arguments, but they still have valid things to say. We shouldn't be demanding people sort of meet us up here, right?
Of course.
That's why I want to educate everyday people and say every good ideas can come from everywhere, and it's the role of those academics to develop those ideas. You know what I mean? Not just ignore them and pull rank. So one of the things that's upset me, and I don't know whether it's my ego, I think it's a little bit my ego, because I don't have a PhD, but is the fact that how dumb people think I am. And I don't know whether that just bruises because so much of my identity is in being like smart and on the left and one of the good guys and all that sort of stuff. I've had to let go of some of my ego. Is that something that, you know, when you pull rank and you go, oh shit, I don't like using these things?
I don't know what to say about that. I think I'm probably unusually confident. So I just like, I don't know. If I ever do that, I just feel quite smug. Like if that person's being an asshole to me and like condescending, and then I have to sort of pull rank, which I don't do very often. But if I have to bum usually some idiot man out, then I will, and I don't feel bad.
I feel like a bit of what I meant was I feel more like a hypocrite because I'm always saying, don't be smug, but then I end up going, I know more about this than you.
Yeah, but I don't think that makes me smug. I don't think that's I think sometimes we have to stand up for ourselves, right? Especially in a world where women are being denigrated or assumed to know less, or so I agree. Maybe the politics of this is different. Like maybe one should not be pulling rank at all, really, inside feminist circles and with other women. Yeah. But doing this shit to men in public, and especially those woke bad assholes who are just like, oh, let me tell you what a lesbian is. Like, fuck you. You know?
Remember when I'm a male lesbian was a dad joke?
Yeah, I do. And isn't there an episode of Friends? I think that was getting circulated recently, where it was like just clearly a hilarious joke that this guy was claiming to be a lesbian.
Oh gosh,
those were the days, weren't they?
Yeah. So what happened with Bumble?
Hinge.
Hinge. Sorry.
That's okay, but let's get the perpetrator right. So Hinge So that's just the dating app that I've been using at the moment. And I guess this has been a challenge for a while anyway. Like how do you, like, it's already hard dating while a lesbian because it's not like
anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, but then add to that most of the community have this like ridiculous woke thing going on. And so it's really I mean, then you have to find a strategy to signal that you're a baddie according to them, right? So I've been increasingly trying to come up with ways to signal on my profile that I'm like a TERF according to them. And if they are like no SWIFTs, no TERFs, then they should stay away.
That's fine. Yeah.
And so I had these like increasingly, like I tried to do it subtly. There was my first attempt was like, Hinge has this, you post answers to template questions.
Okay.
I never used it, but
so
I chose this question, which is what's your most controversial opinion? And then I
know what your answer was.
Well, my first answer when I was trying to be a bit subtle, I wrote that the people formerly known as men shouldn't be that people with penises, and then brackets, the people formerly known as men shouldn't be trying to date lesbians.
Yeah.
So just as a sign, like if you have a penis, please go away.
Yeah.
And then
that should be something that you're allowed to express on a dating site and it be innocuous. Because that's your preference, right?
Well, so I think so too, but it didn't work. So I had trans women match with me and say, oh, but except for trans, right? So as though I mean some other person with a penis who used to be known as a man, but who isn't yet a trans woman. Like who do they think I meant? So, okay, so that didn't work. And then I ratcheted it up when all this J.K. Rowling stuff happened. I changed the answer to, I agree with J.K. Rowling about the importance of women-centered language. It's not people who have periods or experience period poverty, it's women. And then I hashtagged homos against pomo and put a little lesbian emoji. I was like, this is me. Like, just if you don't want it, then don't match with me.
That wasn't enough.
Well, and then the next morning I woke up and I had a match. I think I'd liked someone's picture. They matched with me and it said, fuck off, TERF cunt. So I reported it to Hinge as abuse. And then the next day I was banned.
And it's not just this one event. This is a constant. The more people I talk to, the more you're going to see this pattern. For the normies in the room watching this, is that what happens in this debate is that all you do is assert your boundaries or assert an opinion, and you are, first of all, subjected, it follows a pattern, first of all, subjected to tirades of abuse.
Yeah.
If you make the mistake of defending yourself, even if it has been a day of 100 death threats, you respond with, you're a man though, or whatever, you lose your cool, right? And you end up with a permanent ban, right? The victim gets banned, right? That's the pattern.
I know that's what it felt like. It felt like someone called me a cunt, which is a misogynistic slur, and then I got banned. And I'm now banned for life from a Hinge in a town where Hinge is one of the main dating apps, and it's not even remotely plausible to just run across a lesbian in your everyday life. Like, and
also from Twitter. So you were banned from Twitter, right?
I'm banned. Yes, I've been banned 3 or 4 times. I mean,
was that for? Did you just fuck up and lose your cool, like we all do, or is it something that you got? Did you just one day wake up and find that you were banned? Were you targeted, or?
I mean, I don't know exactly because they don't tell you.
No.
So, it looks like my best guess is that they have that kind of 3 strikes rule. You get your 12-hour ban, your week ban, and then you're done. I got a 12-hour ban. I think I've got a 12-hour ban for misgendering. There's someone in like Perth or somewhere. There's a trans-identified male somewhere in Australia who's like weirdly, creepily obsessive. Like if you search my name in Twitter, you get this person like Lisa or something with the ginger hair. It's constantly going on about how me and Cleanstock and Mary Ling, we want to kick lesbian butch people out of and the misreading of the things we say in this kind of obsessive way. Anyway, that guy had been stalking me around Facebook, complaining to my tagging in the University of Melbourne, just being like really gross. And I had talked about him and said he. And then, so I got a 12-hour ban for misgendering, and I had to delete that tweet. And then the one where I got a week was that I had talked about biological sex to a trans person. So we were in a exchange, and they had said something about using bathrooms, and I had said, well, if you're female, then of course you can, and that's not a problem. And if you're male, then you can't, something like that, where I talked about sex. So it wasn't misgendering, it wasn't dead naming, it wasn't anything that's officially in the Twitter rules. But I got a week ban, and I was so angry about that being, because it's not a rule violation, that I tried to appeal it, but they just never replied. So it went on more than the time of the ban with no reply. And so I eventually just gave in, deleted the tweet, started the ban. And then sometime after that, I just lost my account. And so I'll never know.
You still don't know.
I will never know, because they don't tell you. And even if you appeal, you just get these form responses. And now it's like, I'm now like an academic at like one of the most prominent institutions in Australia, and I can't tweet in my own name because my feminist opinions are wrong. That's insane.
It is insane. Yeah, because it is. Twitter, whether people think, I talked about this a bit with Marquis, which was that they're removing you from your network as well, your ability to network. You can't. Twitter is just as important as something like LinkedIn. Totally. And if I think, because I'm working on this book at the moment on gender critical feminism, there's so many things out of that I like, that I got helpful feedback on really early on, like learning things about why women felt so strongly about reclaiming or keeping the word woman, for example, rather than like splitting female and women and having a sex gender distinction and giving women away. Like all those things about how women in the world feel about this stuff, or what counts as dehumanizing language, just having the ability to throw out a tweet and be like, hey guys, why do we think this, or what's going on with this thing? You can be responsible, accountable to your community in a way. I can't be accountable to the global community of gender critical feminists anymore. I have no way of connecting with them. Yeah.
I think it's a really serious loss.
Yeah. Because I mean, we do try with Spinster and that sort of stuff, but you don't get the reach.
Yeah, exactly.
You just don't. Like, I forget to log in.
I know, same. And because they don't have an app, I mean that really slowed them down, right? That there won't be an app.
Yeah, and if they do try to create an app like Gab, they get banned from the App Store anyway. So it's the fact that this stuff doesn't have an impact is well, it has a major impact on your ability to participate in the conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And it's even just I'm surprised, like I haven't been targeted yet. And I sit there and I say yet, because it's just one of those things where it's a matter. I'm surprised that I haven't. I don't know whether it's because I don't reply to trans people. I know there's a certain pattern of bannings and stuff that just instant.
Yeah.
Right. Or whether the tide is turning and I'm sort of okay. But it's just really what's happened to other people is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that they might start backing down at some point, and suddenly everyone's going to be suddenly mysteriously allowed back, because they're going to realize, I think they're going to realize what's happened. I do believe that they're seeing that they've been captured. I
hope so. And I really hope they don't just kind of stop doing it going forward, but they actually kind of reinstate people like Megan Murphy. I mean, I would love to have my account back, but it's just... Yeah, it feels really unjust. I mean, I must have appealed 20 times, and I tried that Better Business Bureau solution. That didn't work. I even went to the extent of writing them a letter, hand signing it, and like mailing it to their head office to try to like make the philosophical case for why this kind of intellectual disagreement should be allowed to flourish. Yeah. Like I was so mad about it.
We're still naive. We still think that it's. But I'm wondering whether a class action should be on the cards on behalf, at some point. But and just sue them in California collectively as a group, as a class, for sex discrimination. Maybe that's the angle that we need to start going with. I mean, I've been thinking about that, but we have no money. We're the people that have no money. At least radical feminists generally bootstrap everything, right?
Yep.
But is there anything that you have you learned or would do differently? Is there anything that, have you had your time in the naughty corner?
You mean for Twitter?
No, just the naughty, just being one, because I think that for a lot of us, we've just always been on the right side. Like we didn't even think, or were we even on the right side? I don't know. You get what have you gone through, like for me, it pulled a thread on a number of sort of things like Gamergate and a few other issues where I realized that I may have been unfair or wrong in the, you know what I mean? Or, like, has it changed any other views going through this experience and being sort of treated?
I mean, I think it's made me much more sympathetic to all the people who I've seen being kind of casually dismissed because they have the wrong views, but that's not on the left. That's like, in philosophy, there's hardly any people with faith. Like, it's just really uncommon. And then when there are people that have faith, they're actually discriminated against. Like, there's a sort of thought that, like, you can't really believe in God and not be stupid, like, or at least a little bit stupid. So things like that.
That's thing again, isn't it?
Or conservative views, actually, because there's such a liberal bias in the university that there's this thought, even if you're kind of just centrist or like libertarian or just anything that's like just deviation from the like left-wing playbook, then you must be kind of like hateful or a baddie. And I've definitely had unreflective endorsement of those kind of views before, just because they're the views of my peers.
So is that it with postmodernism and critical theory in particular, or?
I mean, we don't really have that much in philosophy.
It's more classical stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. So for us, it's really like the things that we would come across where there would be that kind of denigration would be like, religious things and conservative things. Those are the two that I can think of. There's a bit of it when it comes to like philosophy that's not considered core. So like your metaphysics, epistemology, language stuff is always like really high respect. And then there's some other stuff that's more low respect. But
like sociology.
I get feminism and race theory and the stuff that's more about social injustice. But my sense is it's not dismissed in the same way. So anyway, your question was like, have I sort of changed how I think about anything? And I definitely,
or even how you approach it.
Well, I have much more sympathy now for just what it feels like to be like written off for no good reason, and how frustrating it is to feel like that people are writing you off as though you're just a baddie or some kind of like bigot.
And misrepresenting your arguments rather than taking it on its merits.
Yeah, so I have a bit more, I think I would have a bit more compassion for that, and then would try harder to like listen properly and make connections with people that have experienced that from other domains. It's
made me a better listener, and it's made me be better in control of my emotional response to things when people disagree.
Yeah, right.
I think, that I don't know if you're probably in philosophy, you're probably a bit more centered in that anyway, right? A bit more rational, right? Because you've got that framework of critical thinking to work with. But like I think with a lot of this stuff, I've learned to be more patient. You know what I mean? Like in a weird way, with other people's lack of patience and misrepresenting what I'm saying, and that sort of the bait and switch, becoming more and more aware of fallacies and just how fallacious a lot of this stuff is, and the emotional manipulation and how important it is to defend actual logic.
Reason. You mean like because you know how frustrating it is to deal with that from trans activists? Yeah,
it's made me
want to do that to other people.
Well, and especially my husband, like men, right? That's one thing I used to realize, that I used to do a lot of the stuff, that emotional shutdown in an argument, that I win because I'm crying stuff, like those sorts of things, right? Or that unreasonable stuff. I've grown as a person because I've realized that I was doing some of that they steal all our arguments, right? But
Yeah.
I'm doing all the emotional labor for you. You've got to figure out what you did wrong. You know those women things. I've become more aware of that and learned to be better and more rational, and not throw away it, but I think I'm a better feminist for it.
Yeah.
Which is that I've gotten back to thinking about the pillars and what the fight is and what the history is. Like my grandmother, I was talking about this the other day. My grandmother was born, she's Romani, and her mother grew up in one of the Magdalen laundries in Ireland, right? The places that they would send like loose women. It's basically a prison,
Right.
And then she died, and I sit there and I go, that history and legacy is the stuff that we need to reconnect with.
Yeah.
Right? That women as a class have been treated purely by virtue of sex that these kids don't know about or remember or acknowledge. Right?
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of this stuff is young women who have not had the fight. And they haven't really suffered. They haven't had to fight, so they kind of take it for granted. I think honouring the past.
I totally agree. In fact, I'm preparing this course at the moment, and this is what I'm reading. Does this show up?
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah,
it's so good. It's like 3,500 years worth of the fight.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. It still pisses me off because the right wing bros. The second they find out that you're a TERF, they think that you're an ally of them, and they think that they can just think that we're suddenly going to dismiss all of the patriarchy and all of the things, and then it's like, no, dude, mate. It's just interesting. But do you have any ideas? Because I feel like this is sort of, honestly, I thought this would be over already. I thought we'd be past this with Yaniv. I thought we'd be past this with when J.K. Rowling first came out and they lost their minds, and I keep thinking that we're going to win, or that the ordinary person's going to become aware. I think, or maybe I'm hoping, through this weird revolutionary thing that we're going through at the moment culturally, that ordinary people might see this and go, "This is fucked. This needs to stop." Fingers crossed. They haven't yet.
I don't know. I mean,
how can we get past the toxic part of this debate? Or is it just always going to be that way?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I guess I'm a bit wary. There have been these narratives like since the start, like the tide is turning and there's signs of hopefulness. And it's not that I disagree. Like there are lots of signs of hopefulness. Battle. And but the problem is so big. Like, for me, it's much more the number of women that are captured by this and that are like on the other side working against women. Like, for me, I don't see how that's going to change anytime soon. And I think the fact that it's so bound up in like social status and tribal stuff, like, people are making
capitalism.
Yeah, but I mean, there are. I shouldn't name names, but I can think of people who are like just boring white women in academia who are now like just fucking killing it because they claim to be non-binary, or like this kind of stuff is just. There's so many incentives and rewards like built in that people can signal their wokeness, and then they get social capital out of that. Yeah. People can be kind of interesting and diverse without having to do any work or take on any costs. Yeah, it's just I feel a bit despairing about the extent to which, like, if women at least were all of one voice, or okay, that's too strong, but like most,
at least more women.
Women. If we were kind of saying like, no, this is not what we want, I think we would get something. But it's not. It's like most women are saying, yeah, anyone who identifies as a woman, come one, come all, give away our spaces, come on in the rape shelter. Like, and then you think, like, how are we supposed to make any progress when most women are working against women's interests? I don't know.
Because they think that the fight's been won? Is it because the narrative of patriarchal capitalism is that we have nothing to we should be happy with what we've got, and that we, the battle's been won? Like, a lot of these woke women, I noticed, especially in corporate, right, 2 years ago, they're saying, oh, I'm not a feminist, I'm a humanist. Remember that a few years ago, those women. Now they're woke as fuck and saying that they're feminists because there's capital in it. And I've said this in previous videos, which is what we've been fighting for with diversity is that ordinary, mediocre white men were being promoted over competent women, right? But now I'm seeing mediocre women promoted over, like they're replacing rich white mediocre men with rich white mediocre women, and that's not what this was about. You get what I mean? Like it's like somehow along the way people misrepresented or distorted the arguments. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, and just somehow they thought the battle was won, and for a whole generation we got complacent. The Spice Girls won feminism, and it was suddenly all over. Right? That's what I'm wondering, whether we just got lazy or complacent and
you might be right.
Walked away from the people yelling at us for wearing mascara, right? And we kind of went, oh. I
don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying, that maybe they think it's been won and now we're on to the next battle, and the next battle is trans rights. It's not how I tend to view it. I tend to think it's such a difficult thing to win. Like, it's not hard to look around, even in a really wealthy, prosperous, pretty egalitarian society like Australia. You can still look around and say, where are all the women in politics and in leadership and in various industries? So it's not that hard to notice that we haven't actually won.
No, but they've been telling us that we have. That because we're not,
One thing, we're having this discussion on Facebook yesterday, and one of my friends suggested that they thought it's much more about trans is a much smaller kind of bite-sized issue, so you can fight it and really feel like social justice efficaciousness. So you can think I'm going to get self-ID through, and then I did it, and so I feel like I can make change. It's I can't overthrow patriarchy. What does that even look like? But I can get trans people to be allowed in the bathroom with me.
I can't get men to stop wanting to choke me. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. But I can
fight this thing. Yeah, I see that. Yeah,
to me that seems I find that an intuitive explanation for whatever that's worth. I don't know how much that's worth.
And I think nobody is against that fight. I think that I was wondering about this the other day, reflecting on it, that I like making fun of the most excessive, dumb, woke shit, right? Because they're generally stupid, but I sit and I watch Netflix and I see the outcome of it culturally. And I go, wow, there's more diverse faces. There's more stories. There's more, is this just something where there might be an overcorrection where, women, I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but I'm saying there's an overcorrection, but over time, it's a good thing, I hope that, but if they would only listen to everybody and women and stop telling women that we're privileged when we've still got our own issues to worry about, that, wokeness as off the rails as it seems to go sometimes. I'm loving seeing more different comedy, different stories, learning new stuff, learning about new cultures that haven't ordinarily had a voice. And I sit there and I go, I don't want to be the collateral damage for that. But at the same time, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
But I'm just trying to see the connection. Are you thinking that if we didn't have all this kind of angry, excessive social justice warrior behavior, we wouldn't have those gains?
Well, I don't. Just in terms of with corporate, I'm thinking mostly with corporate entertainment, that sort of stuff, right? Yeah. At some point, they decided there was a market. And there was currency in it, and there was money in it. Yeah. And they only see dollars and cents. Right? They don't give a shit about anything other than that. And so marketers just see inclusion and diversity, and they put all these rainbow, and it's all bullshit, right? It's all just, but at the same time, maybe it is helping to drive, inclusion. I don't know whether we don't know what the result's going to be. I'm still thinking that. I obviously haven't thought that through very well. But all I see is a lot more stuff, a lot more voices being heard.
Oh no, I mean, I think that stuff is great, and I agree with you. The sort of film and television content, and the fact that we're actually getting women's stories and the stories of people of color, and that stuff's all awesome. But I guess I thought you were trying to tie it to like, well, maybe social justice warrior cult seems bad and excessive sometimes. These good things come of it. I'm not where that stuff came from.
No, me either. No, I'm saying they've. I'm on record that a cult has formed that borrows from all of these things, so it hides. It's James Lindsay says that it's wearing legitimate issues like a skin suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I separate the social justice stuff. I hate SJW, for example, as a word. I don't like that. I think that most people caught up in this stuff are trying to do the right thing. I just think that there's a real cult aspect to this stuff that I think goes unaddressed. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a more serious force that looks like social justice, but it's hiding in plain sight, right? I think they're separate things. And I think that when you talk about wokeness as a cult, like as a distinct separate thing from the ideas.
Yeah.
Right. I know I haven't really thought this through. But when you look at them separately, one is really actually undermining the efforts of the other. Like I feel like if I could design the perfect cult or organize or ideology to wind back women's rights, to wind back racial relations, to undermine the left, make the left look crazy, I would design this weird thing that came out of social media and Tumblr.
Yeah.
I would do it as a product. Like if I could design a product that would completely dismantle any project and drive, like, Susan Faluti's backlash. I keep thinking.
Yeah, I was just thinking backlash.
That exact backlash that we're seeing right now. It feels like a backlash.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I've thought this quite a bit, that it's like there's something actually so ingenious about, if you just wanted to have men pushing back on feminism, it's going to be completely transparent to everyone how kind of ugly and unprogressive that is. But if you can find a way to push back on feminism by saying that the feminists themselves are not progressive enough because they're not inclusive, they're hateful, they're exclusionary, they're bigoted, you can undermine feminism by its own logic, by kind of saying it has the wrong values. Like
exactly.
What an ingenious way to undermine a movement.
And honestly, I sit there and I go, look, capitalism is what it is. Corporations are going to do what corporations do. But they wouldn't push this stuff if it didn't benefit them, if it didn't make money, right? And I go, and this is my crazy board, but I sit there and go, this sounds like a political cult. I don't know who the leaders are. It sounds like it's on purpose. I don't, it's less and less like a phenomenon and more like an organized religion. Like that's more like Scientology, but I know it makes me sound crazy.
I just think we don't give enough credit to how these social processes can ratchet up, right? It's just, it gets started organically, but then it's people can kind of claim social power by showing that they're really woke, or I have these values, I'm one of the good ones, and they aren't. And so that in itself just becomes a mechanism by which this stuff gets really entrenched. And then
just the social capital part?
Yeah, it's it can end up looking like it was really organized. God, that surely must have some.
I know,
but it doesn't.
Funny. Yeah. That's the thing. That's my leap, is that I keep saying this looks like a cult. I can't prove it. Yeah, maybe I just lack another framework. Maybe I just need a different framework, like Gramsci or some other way of looking at it. But
people talk about this with market. This was the invisible hand idea about markets, right? It's everyone's just acting in their own. If you buy this, everyone's acting in their own self-interest. But it just when we do these self-interested transactions, there just emerges.
Yeah, this is how it happens.
If you just came along and saw a market, you'd be like, God, someone must have designed that thing. It's so well crafted for its purpose, and it's so organized. But it's just these organized things can emerge spontaneously over time. So I think what looks like a cult, it is just all these mechanisms.
It's just something that needs a Marxist analysis and the various other types of things applied to it. And you go, oh, that's just boring old capitalism. Nothing to see here. That's just how it is. Is that just humans that we're destined to sort of go this way? Do we just behave in a certain way?
I mean, I've been like wondering about this a lot when it comes to feminist infighting lately.
Oh
Like,
my God.
because it's the same
I
question,
wasn't
right?
going to
It's
go
like,
there, but
what are the? Well, I mean, we don't need to talk about details, but I mean, it's just
yeah.
the same sort of thing about, is this thing a cult? Like, or did someone organize it, or did it just emerge? It's like there must be these human impulses for like competing over status, or not feeling recognized, or just like lashing out when frightened, or like there must just be all these social explanations, and they're explanations about humans, right? They're going to show up in all human communities,
Yeah.
but when they do, they look like, what are they doing? We've got this shared goal, and now
Well, the one thing I was reading about recently was Freud's narcissism of small differences as a concept, which and this is the left and feminists as well, like anyone who's been on the left, is that the history of socialism cracks me up. I'd love to write a comedy book about the great splits.
Yes, that would be a
greatest wars have been fought over
it.
the smallest things.
Yeah, and how they fell out and how dramatic it was, right?
Like the reformists versus the revolutionists, right?
Yeah.
It's socialism. Yes. And there's a massive split, and it's like People's Front of Judea versus the Judean People's Front, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, maybe that's just a human psychological impulse, which is to other rather than to find similarities.
Yeah. Well,
and we've got to fight those impulses and try to, I find it funny, but there's comedy in it. But
there's possibly adaptive, like a friend of mine suggested that there's sort of adaptive reasons why we would do that, right? Like if we were all just kind of groupthink sheep, right, then we would soon end up in disaster, right? Because then people aren't identifying problems, and so we're not finding solutions, and then we're not like adapting to our niches. And so
I don't think we're ready for the technology. I think that we are just not evolved enough. Because coming from tech, a lot of the stuff that I see is, like with surveillance capitalism and predictive behavioral products and all of those sorts of things, the things that I'm seeing is that we're actually a lot more predictable than we think as well, right? Like you can actually map a human sort of, decision making and those sorts of things. They're actually we're more predictable. So maybe, I find it, maybe we're just not ready for these tools, but with Twitter and social media and all of those tools, that the very first thing that humans do is build a church. Like civilizations, maybe it's just a human nature. The first thing we do is build churches, right? Or when you play Age of Empires, like the first buildings you can build are like food, shelter, and church, right? Maybe that's what it is. It's just our desire to find something. I don't know. Yeah. This is beyond my area of understanding, but
same. We're speculating now.
Is there anything you'd do differently now, other than not get banned for misgendering?
I don't think so. I mean, it's true that like if I had have known Twitter were going to be so crazy about their rules, maybe I would have been a bit more careful. But I don't think
change the rules though. That's the thing for most people, is that we went in knowing one set of rules, thinking we could have fun and speak truth, and then it just suddenly changed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'd do anything differently.
No. And what's another, okay, here's a funny, let's have fun. I like to close with some fun, right? What's another controversial view that you hold that might annoy people? Like, for example, I hate Coriander, or I think Grease 2 is a better movie than Grease. Do you have one of those?
God, I can't think of anything on the spot that's not just like related to politics, which is
dogs versus cats.
I don't like either.
I like birds better.
I like lizards. But that's not very controversial.
Lizards are better. Lizards are good people. Yeah.
I don't like pizza. Is that controversial?
Oh, you don't like pizza? That is.
I don't know why people like pizza so much. So boring. And it's only delicious on the first slice when it's hot. And then it's yuck after that for like 7 pieces. Yeah. So there you go.
There you go. And guess what? I don't hate you for having that view.
Damn. I should have thought of something more controversial.
I should have actually mentioned it ahead of time. I forgot. I was like, think of something. But but I remember a big fight. I've talked about this, but in the Perth Twitter community in 2011, one of the biggest fights I ever saw was over coriander.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was
Isn't it funny? Isn't it weird? Maybe we just need to be able to disagree again, hey?
Oh God, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, but anyway. That's your controversial view, is that people should be able to disagree.
We should be able to be on agree with 100%.
It's a controversial view, I know. But maybe people should not be told to choke on a giant penis when pointing out misogyny.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Highly controversial.
It's lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, really nice to talk to you. Thanks.
And I hope you end up back on Twitter because I miss you.
Thank you. I hope so too, but I'm not holding my breath.
No, but we need to get. But yeah, but you've got a book coming out. Stay in touch, and yeah, stay cool.
Thanks.
You are fighting the good fight. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.